Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
He laughed without meaning to when an olive rolled across the shiny hotel floor toward his chair. He sat alone at a table. The olive had come from a table far away, yet it rolled all the way to him, stopping by his feet. He picked it up and placed it beside his plate, a bit embarrassed because he knew the girl at the other table had seen him do it. When he looked up, she was also laughing. She had accidentally sent the olive flying while serving herself. She looked at him, then looked away quickly, glancing at her mother. After that, the moment seemed over, but he kept touching the olive by his plate throughout his meal. When no one was watching, he put it in his pocket and took it upstairs to his room. He placed it on his shelf along with his other things. As he read in his room later, he kept thinking of the olive and the girl's friendly smile. He wondered if they might meet the next day. Her laugh had felt warm and kind, and he sensed she wanted a friend. She looked like a cheerful girl, happy and playful. Her mother, like many others at the hotel, seemed unwell. The girl had probably come with her mother to take care of her. He was a young man who had worked very hard for 5 years without a break. He was finally taking a holiday and had come to Italy to rest. He wanted warm weather, blue skies, and some company. But this place was quiet, and most visitors left quickly. He thought of the girl's smile and the little olive as he fell asleep, hoping tomorrow would bring a new adventure. He stayed, enjoying the sunshine and the good prices. He was too tired to look for a busier place. Every day, he walked through the olive groves, sat by the sea, and visited shops. The money exchange made things seem cheap, so he bought items he didn't even need. Olive trees were everywhere. No matter where he went, walking by the sea, exploring villages, or shopping, he always ended up near olive groves. Even the postcards had olive trees on them. The locals talked about the olive trees all the time. He would often hear, "And do you like our olive trees? They grow on you, don't they?" He would agree, but secretly he wanted to try an olive. Even after 6 weeks, he hadn't seen any olives to eat, none in shops, none on the market stalls, and none in the hotel. He saw people picking olives, knocking them from trees and gathering them in baskets, but he learned that these olives were only used to make oil, not for eating. This frustrated him. He wanted to taste an olive. Then one night, he saw his first edible olive rolling across the shiny floor, sent his way by the careless hand of a pretty girl who looked up at him and smiled. That night, he slept well, as usual. But something woke him suddenly. There was a noise at his door. He listened in the dark room. The noise didn't come again. "Who's there?" he asked in a sleepy whisper. He heard a soft tapping on the door. "What do you want?" he asked, louder this time. Still, nothing happened. Now fully awake, he tried to turn on the light, but remembered the electricians were on strike. He fumbled for matches and then heard a voice in the hallway. "Aren't you ready?" "You sleep forever," the voice said. He realized it was the girl from dinner, the one who had dropped the olive. He quickly got out of bed, lit a candle, and put on his clothes. "I'm coming," he called softly. "Be quick," she whispered urgently. When he opened the door, candle in hand, he saw her face, her eyes bright and smiling. She blew out his candle quickly. "We mustn't be seen," she whispered, taking his hand and leading him down the dark hallway. They slipped out a back door into the cool, fresh night air behind the hotel. He saw stars above and felt awake. He realized how strange this all was, but he felt a thrill. The girl stood a few feet away, wearing a thin scarf that moved with the wind. She seemed like a dream. "I say, haven't you been to bed?" he asked. She laughed, her voice soft and happy. "Watching the stars," she replied. "I came for you. We've got 4 hours." He felt swept away by her words. "Let's go," he said. She grabbed his hand, and they ran up the hill toward the woods. The big hotel and sleeping town faded behind them as they moved farther up. The stars were slowly fading, but the morning light hadn't yet come. The cool air felt fresh on their faces. Slowly, the sky grew lighter. The east turned pink, and the shapes of trees became clear. The olive leaves began to move in the breeze. They were in an olive grove, with the sea below a deep blue-green. Tiny fishing boats dotted the water, and the sailors sang as the birds joined in from nearby gardens. They stopped to rest under an old twisted tree. The girl looked at him with shining eyes. "You understood my little message so well," she said with a smile. She playfully pinched his ears, then lightly covered his eyes with her hands. "You know how to have fun," she teased, showing her bright smile. "You'll be even better at it soon." "Will I?" he replied, a bit shy. She gave him a mischievous look. "You still have the olive, right?" "Yes, it's on my mantelpiece." "You didn't eat it, did you?" she joked, poking her tongue out playfully. "I'll keep it as long as I live," he promised, and, laughing, he pulled her close, covering her in kisses. "I knew you liked to play," she whispered, "but it was sweet of you to pick it up before anyone else did." "If someone else had picked it up?" he asked. "Then I'd be with them now," she laughed, darting away, her laughter echoing through the trees. He chased her, her figure flashing like light through the grove, until he finally caught her and kissed her again, forgetting everything else. "Listen," she whispered excitedly, holding him close. "Do you hear? It's the sound of a pipe." "The pipe?" he repeated, feeling a small shiver of excitement. He looked at her, seeing her hair loose and her face rosy from his kisses. Her eyes were bright and wild. She seemed both beautiful and mysterious, with an expression that made him feel a strange chill. "Who are you?" he asked softly, stepping back. Before he could move, she leaped and held him tightly. She kissed him, and he forgot everything, his question, his small fear, even the world around them. "They're coming," she laughed happily. "The dawn is here. Are you ready?" "I've been ready forever," he replied with a smile. She laughed like the wind in the trees, took his hand, and they ran together to join others dancing up the hill. They were all singing joyfully, covered in vines and branches. Slowly, as they danced, they seemed to fade into the soft, blue light of morning, just as the sun began to rise from the sea. They arrived at a small, empty village, its houses broken and old, with wild plants and animals living there now. He felt like he knew this place, but he couldn't remember why. The village was quiet, with the dawn light shining through the empty streets. "I remember our house," she called, running into an old cottage without a roof. A beehive hung on the wall. He followed her inside. Sunlight filled the room, flowers bloomed around, and on a simple table was a bowl of cream, honey, eggs, and a loaf of bread. They sat together on a bed of soft grass and flowers by the window, surrounded by the gentle hum of bees. This village was called Bussana, abandoned years ago after an earthquake had destroyed it one summer morning, leaving the people to flee. But here, in the quiet ruins, they found a place just for them. "The church," he murmured, half remembering the story. They were all praying. The girl laughed softly in his ear, making him feel wild and free. "The true God came back," she whispered. But they weren't ready. They heard his music, the ground shook, the hills danced. And the houses crumbled, he laughed, holding her closer. "We've come back to celebrate," she cried with joy, snuggling into his arms as the sun rose higher. "I hear them, listen," she said, suddenly jumping up and dancing away. He followed, watching through a broken window as fauns, nymphs, and satyrs danced through the trees. They all headed toward the ruined church, laughing and singing. "Let's go," he called, grabbing her hand. They ran together, and she leaped into his arms as they reached the old church. The roof was gone, walls cracked, and birds nested in the broken stone. "Quiet," she whispered, pointing ahead with awe. "He is here." In the place where the altar once stood, there was a great figure, powerful and wild, with eyes that seemed to shine. His feet were hidden in the brambles, but his gaze was kind and fierce. "God," someone gasped in fear and wonder. Suddenly, a panic swept through the crowd as the figure rose. Birds flew, animals hid, and the dancers ran in all directions. "An earthquake," someone screamed. "Kiss me, one last kiss before we forget," she whispered, her lips brushing his. "We will remember." But then he woke up, his bed covers pushed against his mouth, with the morning wind whistling around the hotel walls. "Did those ladies leave?" he asked the head waiter, pointing to the table. "They were here last night." The waiter looked confused. "Ladies? Last night?" "An older English lady and her daughter," he began, but just then, the girl walked in alone. Lunch was over, and the room was empty. Their eyes met, and she blushed. Quickly, he spoke. "I was asking about your mother. I noticed she's not here. Is she well?" "That's very kind," she replied with a smile, showing her small, even teeth. Within days, he was completely in love. "I believe this is yours," he said, holding out an olive. "You dropped it. May I keep it?" They were standing in an olive grove, with the sun setting behind them. She looked him up and down, and he thought she might reach up to gently pinch his ear or cover his eyes as she had in his dream. "Tell me," he asked softly, "did you dream anything the first night we met?" She stepped back quickly. "No, I don't think I did." Then, catching her breath as he moved closer, she added, "But I knew, from how you picked it up." "Knew what?" he asked, holding her tightly so she couldn't slip away. That you were already halfway there, and soon would be all the way. As he kissed her, he felt her soft fingers playfully tug at his ears.